and pinfalls. My name is Edward and this is Hidden Gems. What is Hidden Gems, you ask? Well, usually what I do is I take a game from years past, maybe one that has been forgotten about over time, and I shed a bit of light on that. Or I take a much more recent game that maybe got passed over when it was first released. In talking about this game, I then hope to kind of show it in its best light to you guys out there, in the hope that maybe you track it down and try it out for yourselves. Now, I say usually I look at a game. This time, because of the reboot and everything, what I will be doing is looking at an entire console, namely the PlayStation Vita. This is my PlayStation Vita. I've had it since they were released. It is an excellent piece of kit that I think gets completely overlooked and passed by, and I want to share it with you guys here today. So let's begin. The PlayStation Vita was released in Japan in December 2011 and across the rest of the world from February of 2012. And it is the successor to the PlayStation Portable, or the PSP. Now, that in of itself is a very good console, but the reason I am not looking into that too deeply is for two reasons. Firstly, very simply, you can get PSP games for the Vita. Granted, you have to download them from the PS Store, but you can still do that, and you can't get Vita games on the PSP. But secondly, and much more importantly, the PSP only has one analog stick. The PSP was released in 2004. Now, Sony's first foray into analog sticks came way back on the PlayStation 1 when they released the analog controller in 1997. So it took them 7 years to remove the right analog stick for reasons. And it then took them another 7 years to actually add it back in when the Vita was released. And this is despite the fact that the PlayStation Portable was released in various different guises throughout its lifespan. But I digress. Moving back to the Vita. Now, this was released as an 8th generation console, basically to rival the 3DS. Now, the reasons for this were the PSP was released to rival the DS, and although it didn't sell anywhere near as many copies as the DS, it still did rather well worldwide, especially initially. So that led Sony to think that they could kind of keep their hand within the handheld world. And again, initial sales seemed to fare quite well, but these dropped off fairly quickly. And within the first year, it was clear that this system was struggling. Just to give you some numbers to put this into context, the PSP sold between 80 and 82 million copies worldwide. However, its rival, the Nintendo DS, did in excess of 154 million copies. Now, when we look at the 3DS, that has sold in excess of 75 million copies as of the recording of this video, whereas the Vita has only sold a measly 16 million copies worldwide. However, I'm not really sure why the sales figures are so low. The Vita is a very capable console. At the time, it had a fairly decent screen size. It's not particularly heavy. It has Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and 3G capability. Granted, 3D is very outdated now, but still having Bluetooth and Wi-Fi is a very nice plus. And in 2013, the Vita 2000 was released, which is ever so slightly smaller, has a larger battery capacity, and they have replaced the OLED screen for an LCD screen. Couple this with the fact that it links to the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4, not only as additional controllers or to use the screen for extra information, but you can also cross-play games on the Vita and also link your Vita to those systems and actually play the games that you have on those systems on the Vita as well. As I mentioned before, you can access the PlayStation Store on this system, and download various different PSP games, as well as other older games, mainly PS1 games, for this system. Not only this, but there is a huge wealth of games that any PlayStation fan would recognise that have Vita iterations. I myself am currently splitting my time between 3 games on the Vita, one of which is Uncharted Golden Abyss, which was actually released for the Vita. Another is the original PS1 version of Final Fantasy IX, and the other is the PSP game Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, a game that is nigh on impossible to play without the second analog stick. What the hell were you thinking, Sony? But alongside Uncharted, there are various other games that people will recognise. Persona 4 Golden, Gravity Rush, Minecraft, Wipeout, FIFA. There are also Vita-specific versions of Little Big Planet, Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed. So as you can see, there is a wide variety of games that most players of AAA games will recognise, as well as many indie developers as well releasing on the PS Vita. So I am still to this day baffled as to why these worldwide sales are so low. I myself got mine when it was first released in Europe, as I did with the PSP, and I'm very happy still to this day that I bought both consoles when I did. Granted, they will probably take a slight backseat in my life now that I have a Nintendo Switch, and obviously that is capable of being a home console as well as a handheld device. But given the huge wealth of games that are available on the PSP and Vita, and of course on the Vita you can be playing those PSP games, if you are a Sony fan and a PlayStation fan as I am and you don't have one, I am very, very surprised. There will be plenty on there for you to enjoy. The only issue being that Sony discontinued production of the Vita earlier this year in March 2019. So the only copies of the console will all be second-hand ones, and they will obviously range massively in terms of price and condition. So it is best to be very vigilant with what you are buying. That said, I still think there is a lot of fun to be had with this console, and I hope that I still will have fun with it in years to come. I doubt, however, whether Sony will enter into the handheld market anytime in the future though. So there we go, my thoughts and feelings on the PlayStation Vita. They are still pretty readily available. As I said, just make sure you track down a decent copy of it. Make sure you check out the condition of it before you make that purchase, because it could be a little bit too good to be true. Next month we will be looking at Yoshi's Island for the SNES, and next week will be a Wrestling Stories booking video looking at the WCW pay-per-view that unfortunately never happened, The Big Bang. Later on this week I will be releasing my Hell in a Cell predictions. There will also be another part of my WrestleGamia 3 series, and I will start my Twitch live stream on Sunday, which I am very excited for. But until then, my name is Edward, and thank you very much for watching. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. To keep up to speed with everything we're doing, you can find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you wish to support us financially, you can do so over on Patreon for as little as $1 per month. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any future videos. Till next time, we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.